Welcome, wonderful listeners, to the Shadow and Starlight Podcast, where two friends deep dive into popular fantasy and romantasy books. We get into the stories, characters, world building, lore, and so much more.
So buckle your seatbelts for this wild roller coaster ride of emotions, magical worlds, and laughs. I'm Kinsey.
I'm Kana, and this is Honey Badger. My cat.
Oh. Today we're going to be covering chapters 45 through 58 of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros.
First and foremost, please listen carefully to our content warning. These are adult books we talk about, and neither of us have a filter, so this podcast is rated R and for those 18 plus. Regarding spoilers, if you have not finished the entire Fourth Wing and Iron Flame books, please come back after you do so. While we are covering a certain stretch of chapters, we will be doing so with perspective of what happens in both books to help us dive deeper into the theories and really appreciate the masterful foreshadowing of Rebecca Yarros. So going forward, all episodes on our show will contain spoilers for the whole series in question.
Next, if you like what you hear today and want more, please come back next Thursday, and next Thursday, and next Thursday, and next Thursday, and every Thursday after that for a new episode. As a taller podcast, we would love to hear your feedback, better ourselves, and expand our book lover community. Please feel free to give us reviews, reach out to us on social media, and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and watch us on YouTube at Shadow and Starlight Pod.
It is our 20th episode. 20 weeks into being podcasters. But thank you guys for anyone that's been here with us on our journey, especially from the beginning. It's definitely been a learning curve, but we love doing this so much, and we love talking about books with you guys. So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
If you're here.
Thank you.
Love
you.
What you drinking?
Orange juice, because I'm trying to hurry up and get rid of whatever this is. It's almost gone. But orange juice. I need the vitamin C.
Vitamin
right?
C? Yeah. I'm drinking water because I'm going to a wedding tonight and it's an open bar. So I'm going to hydrate before I dehydrate. Or something like that. Okay. We are in our last week of double digits in our Onyx Storm countdown. 13 days. It doesn't even feel real that in a couple weeks I'm going to be reading this book, but I'm so excited about it. And then reminder, we do have extra episodes releasing this month. So our Onyx Storm prediction and second signet discussion will be releasing January 17th, which is the Friday after our last Iron Flame deep dive. So it'll be next week. And then we'll have an initial reaction episode to Onyx Storm, which will be live January 27th. And there'll be two sections in that, a spoiler-free section and a spoiler-heavy section. So once you finish, you got to cry and talk to someone who knows what you're going through, come check out our reaction episode. And then 3 days after that, our first deep dive episode will go live. And it's going to be beefy, I'm sure. So you've all been warned. And we'll all probably be grieving someone's death. So we can all cry together.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm getting increasingly nervous the closer it gets.
I know. I just know she's gonna kill somebody. Kick off our fourth Iron Flame episode. Candace gonna lead us across the parapet, where she goes through her Shadow and Starlight synopsis, aka her unhinged summary, detailing the events of these chapters.
Yeah. This stretch of chapters opens with Death Roll, of course, a sassy dragon that wants to eat her allies, and a masterclass on runes. Xaden fills Violet in on just how one particular rune created by Colonel Myrie is what makes the rebellion relics and shields them from General Melgren. Back in classes, it is no surprise that the writers and the flyers have done the opposite of a peaceful integration. So Devera suggests a new method, no longer separating them and also giving them the opportunity to punch each other first. Petty girl that she is, Kat and her whole entire squad challenges Violet and her whole entire squad. And when it's time for our FMC to face off with Kat, she quickly realizes that she isn't the only girlfriend Xaden trained to throw a punch. Between attacks, there is a total cat fight, pun intended. The flyer continues to bait Violet about Xaden, revealing that it's not about love, it's about a crown. Violet mostly keeps her cool until mind work comes into play. Utilizing her bestie's training, she disables Kat, and her emotions take over morals as she strangles and almost kills her soon-to-be squad mate. Thanks to Xaden showing up and talking her down mind to mind, she is able to stop from becoming a cold-blooded murderer. Thrashing in Xaden's grip, he takes her to the throne room. Yeah, we all know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Knowing that a discussion won't erase what just happened, Daddy Xaden drops those 3 little sentences. My house, my chair, my woman. Oh my god, oh my god. Yeah, this scene is crazy good. No need for a play-by-play since we have probably all read this countless times, but there is some like finger blasting, world-shattering orgasms, and mind melding. Not sure what better way to put it, but Violet got inside of Zayden's head. No fucking this time, because they need to communicate or fight like a healthy couple would. Violet realizes that Kat's mind work only amplifies feelings she already has, so she not only needs to get control over her power, but control over her emotions. Too bad Basgiath or Erasha doesn't have therapy. Armed with a fashionable rune dagger to protect against Kat's venom, Violet is the bigger person and helps Ree welcome this drift into the Iron Squad. Actually, fuck being the bigger person. Thanks for the finger trick, biatch. After making sure Violet doesn't want them to bury a body, the gang accompanies her to the library to meet Dane. Ugh. In the midst of translating a diary, the two childhood friends have an honest conversation for the first time in a long time. And according to Dane the Pain, he only stole her memories once, on accident. Round 2, training with Felix, goes significantly better than last time, Violet even finding joy and beauty in her power. Just when she and Felix think she might be getting a handle on this, bam, lightning. That's called progress, actually. Returning to Erasha, Xaden has bad news to report. Venin and Wyvern have taken Pavis, a town that is a prime staging point to make the next stop Erasha. Wards, Violet. We need wards. Or Oprah. You get a ward. You get a ward. You get a ward. You get a ward. Finding Xaden in his Erashan brooding spot, Violet brings him some chocolate cake, and they discuss how seriously outmatched and late they are to the war against evil. About 50 years too late. Yikes. Fueled with desperation, the next week is filled with late nights translating and training her control. One late night, Violet finds the answer to raising the wards, but it will come at a cost. Mother Ree has laid down the law, and now the Iron Squad of flyers and riders does pretty much everything together. To build the notion of trust, Violet shares what she knows about the wards. They can raise them, but flyers won't be able to channel magic within them. After an expected reaction, they agree that they basically have no other option. But bonus, Mayor Sight. You may not have mind work, but explosives are still a classic weapon against evil. After a terrifying nightmare that might be foreshadowing Onyx Storm, and 6 days later, the squad is taking off on a training exercise in sensing runes. But first, a goodbye where I fall in love with Garrick just a little bit and wish I was one of the mares in his stable. Next chapter features Violet, Kat, Sloane, and Darna and Vizia going into a cave together. Sounds like a great idea. Nothing bad could possibly happen. All good things like Kat's rare honesty and Violet's scribe jokes. While they walk and casually chat, the topic of second signets comes up in familial lines, and it hits Violet. Xaden most definitely has one. Or else he would be mad, and he seems pretty sane. Putting that devastating realization on the back burner, they find the rune, and unfortunately, a one-eyed orange dragon with stank breath has found them. R.I.P. Vizia. In survival mode, Andarna protects the group from impending dragonfire and squares up against a dragon nearly twice her size. Violet throws a dagger at his other eye, and badass Sloane is a siphoner. Yas. With Kat providing cover, Vian and Darna beat this mofo up. Violet gets yeeted by a dragon tail, and while she's being carried away, Andarna finishes the job. Slaya and Poison Master, just like her rider. Violet gets checked by the healer, and Xaden stops by to check on her. Cute argument on Xaden's deal with Lilith. I'm not even going to go into this argument because what in the actual heck, but this is when Violet asks him outright what his second signet is. Unfortunately, they are interrupted by a horde of wyvern approaching. Panicking just a tad, the gang does manage to get the wards up in the nick of time. No time to test them, and they fly quickly to wait for the enemy. Since Sigale and Taryn are super fast, the lovebirds get to continue their argument from earlier. Violet stands her ground, and after much protest, Xaden admits the truth. He is an intrinsic. What? And Violet begins questioning everything about her low-key toxic relationship. But her love ain't fickle, brah. Wyvern and Dark Wielders approach, but thank goodness the wards work. Violet feels victorious, but is grieving the loss of normalcy in her relationship after such a big reveal. No time for any of that, though, because a missive from Melgren requesting a meeting, and the wards actually don't work. Melgren, Mommy, and some random colonels show up to find the Sorrengail sisters, Shadow Daddy, and Ulysses from the council. The first real conversation we get with Melgren and his beady little eyes confirm just how terribly heartless he is. After roasting Ulysses to his heart's content, Melgren announces that they are going to be overrun at Samara. If you need to ask for help, maybe don't be such a dickwad? Just a suggestion. They continue to roast each other and discuss whether they will provide aid until Mommy's jaw hits the flow. Brennan has decided to grace them with his presence. Since Navarre couldn't ask politely, the assembly seemingly decides to resign them to death, leaving time for a family reunion. Mira and Brennan light Lilith up. Giving them some motherly advice in Lyra's journal, they part ways. Next chapter, Violet and Xaden spar out the rest of their argument, and in battle brief later, brilliant Violet realizes the Venon's true plan. Use Samara as a distraction and attack Basgaiath.
Well, now that we've crossed the parapet, it's time to head into our battle brief section where we will discuss all notable things in this stretch of chapters, including foreshadowing theories and our favorite parts. So let's get into the foreshadowing. So first, this is like a bit of foreshadowing towards, I think, Onyx Storm and its Violet's ability to transcribe different texts. So we know that it's no secret that Violet was trained her whole life to be a scribe. And once they retrieved the secret journals from the archives that told them how to activate the Ward Stone, Violet had to transcribe the journal. And of course, we know her first attempt was a fail because she pretty much skipped the whole thing except for the one entry that she needed to raise the wards, as she thought. She also needed the whole book in order to, figure out the code, because her transcribing this journal is like reading code, and they have to figure out what symbols go with what letters and what words go with what. So they were actually able to finally to figure it out when she went back and retranscribed the whole entire book, and she realized that she missed a couple words that played a big key in raising the wards. So I think that being able to transcribe is a great skill to have, especially when this setting revolves around so many old texts in history. I also think that this skill will come in handy next book, or I think that she may use it even like if she ever decides to discover her dad's journals, because I know that she said that Dane and her used to transcribe stuff for her father. So I'm assuming that he probably wrote his journals in code as well.
Ooh, I haven't thought about that, but I bet you it would be in a language that is probably rare, and Papa Sorrengail knew that only Violet could read or something like that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
All right. I would like to have a discussion. Well, I'm going to word vomit a bunch and then we can discuss about Catriona. So let's talk about this woman. And I really, 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 really hated her on my first read. I think most people do. But I started getting glimmers of likableness in the cave scene. And ever since I read something online, I look at her in a totally different way. In this stretch, we learn that she is going to war with Violet for a crown, not a man's affections, which is better since she's being a total bitch. And I mean, I sure hate the way that she goes about it, but yeah. Somewhere on social media, I saw someone point out that if the genders were reversed and a man was doing the same things, we might not feel the same way, or at least feel as strongly as we do. And I do think that's true. And I think myself included, a lot of us have unconscious biases when approaching Cat. And I think that just speaks to even like in fictional books or TV or movies or even in real life. I think men do a lot of horrible things for power, but aren't demonized and hated the way a woman is for doing the same. And I pride myself on being a feminist, but I definitely think that I acknowledge that, I hated her more than I should. But I do want to say I'm not putting her on a pedestal, but I do think we should acknowledge she was raised to take this role in Erasure and is doing what she thinks is best for her family and trying to put them in a position of power when the rest of the world is falling apart. So I hate the way she goes about it, and she really says some dirty things to Violet, but I kind of get it. And then in the cave scene, Kat is still a low-key a bitch, but her and Violet do bond a little. Kat has a rare moment of honesty where she actually compliments Violet, and I think the two of them realize they are alike whether they like it or not, and they begin to look at each other differently. Violet saves her life, and Kat doesn't leave Violet to fend for herself. And then Violet also notices, I thought this was really interesting, that Kat is calming herself by counting, similar to how our FMC recites historical facts. Quote, 90, 100, 101. Her voice shakes, end quote. So I have infinitely more respect for Kat after this cave scene, and I kind of actually hope that her and Violet maybe sort of become friends. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Kens?
So I do agree with everything you said. Never really realized how we kind of attack the women more than men, but like now that you point that out, like that is very true. I don't think I ever, I don't know. I more so just like the banter between her and like the banter between the triangle, like her, Xaden, and Violet. Like, and I feel like I'm the same way with guys. Like, I just love triangles. It's just, they excite me for some reason. I love all the banter. So, like, I don't know. I also like the unspoken, like, tolerance that they are starting to have for each other. I don't really know if I want them to be friends. I like the little, I don't know. I like that banter. But I do like their unspoken bonding though. Like they have bonded a little bit, and they're starting to understand each other more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously we have to get used to her. Like we knew that she would be a part of the story because they're allies now. So like obviously we had to get used to her. I definitely like her more than I like Dane, so that says a lot. So
I mean, that's not setting the bar. Yes. Well, I don't know.
She's still not the best person. So it's like I get where you're coming from, but also like we have worlds, and Kat is definitely not the best person. So I can't be too forgiving. But
fair.
I do like her more than I like Dane. I will say that.
All right. Wow, that's like a glowing endorsement. Well, I think they could be friends if they're able to get over their beef. Maybe, but I am happy that they have like a respect for each other now, and I think the way that was written was cool. Like, and especially like Violet shows her forgiving side because Kat did some kind of not even kind of, they were fucked up things, and Violet was still able to like move past that, and I think that's a really good redeeming quality in her. But we'll see where their friendship frenemy situation goes.
We'll talk about the marked ones and runes. So I'm not going to talk too much about this. I know that Kayla and I are going to talk about this a little bit further down in the episode, but I did find this one part interesting because I have a feeling that this will probably come back up next book. So in this stretch of Xaden, quote unquote, giving us answers, which is total BS, he tells us that Liam's mother used a protection rune and imbued it into 107 stones to protect the Mark Ones. So we also know that the parents of the Mark Ones, obviously, they knew what was happening outside the ward, so they were planning on a way to leak the info and fight a war to save the continent. However, they also knew that whether it be by Venom or Navarre, they would die at some point. So Colonel Mari put runes and stones to protect their kids, which could only be used once. And this is pretty much how they survived the whole rebellion. And I found this really interesting when Xaden was talking to Milgram when they met up. Xaden said, quote, tried that, he didn't want me or any of us, remember, end quote. And this is when Milgram was like basically saying like your soul's gonna be sent to Malik for like your betrayal or something. And Xaden is basically saying they've tried that before, didn't work because they had this protective room to protect them from any harm. And I think this also is one of the reasons why it is impossible to predict outcomes when 3 or more of them are together. So I think that this, obviously runes are going to come back up later in Onyx Storm, I do think, but I think that this is going to be one way that they might use to save the continent.
Yeah, there's definitely an importance to runes that I don't even think we've broken the surface on. I'm excited to see. They were really confusing for me to try and figure out at first.
Yeah.
I remember my first read of Iron Flame and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, how? Why?
Runes.
It just came out of left
More
field.
magic. More magic.
Well, I'm not complaining. I love more magic, but I was super confused. But don't worry, we're going to break down these runes in our Myths and Magic, or excuse me, our Book of Chesinia. All right, the next foreshadowing we're going to talk about is the Venom nightmares that Violet is having and how I think it can be foreshadowing Onyx Storm. Let's get into it. In this stretch of chapters, Violet has her recurring nightmare, but with more voice lines this time. And it has me thinking, the sage wants to see her powers to prove him right that she is a weapon worth retrieving, or if they should kill her before she grows into her full abilities. Now, I do think the sage could be talking about Xaden or Violet, probably most likely Violet. At this point, we have wondered a bunch about if the Venom want Xaden, and then they want Violet by proxy to manipulate him. I think it could be either one, and either way it makes sense, but I guess we'll probably find out which one they want more in Onyx Storm. But I do want to mention one quote referring to the sage from Reston. Quote, his head turns noticeably from me to Xaden. Does that mean they want Xaden? Or does that mean they want Violet and they're going to use Xaden to manipulate her? I don't know. But regardless, he says some interesting things that make me, He says that most men turn for power, but they will, but Xaden or Violet, whoever they're talking to, they will for love. Quote, you'll tear down the wards when the time comes. Is that foreshadowing? So we know that Violet's one mission in Onyx Storm is to save Xaden. Would it involve her doing something like tearing down the wards to save him? I could foresee something like this happening where she has to sacrifice her values and, quote, ruin herself to save Xaden, and we'll have to wrestle with the guilt of it later. The $1,000,000 question is, how far will Violet go for love? And I'm going to say pretty far. In chapter 58, I do want to highlight another quote. She says, quote, you could throw my entire world into upheaval and I would still love you. You could keep secrets, run a revolution, frustrate the shit out of me, probably ruin me, and I would still love you. I think our girl is going to do something she'll regret for Xaden. But I don't know. You think this is foreshadowing, Kenzie?
Yeah. So I find the dreams very difficult to decipher because I don't know if I came up with this or this is like a vague memory, but I feel like she was having these dreams like in different perspectives for some reason. Because like every time it's a little bit different, and I feel like I don't know. So
I have a maybe theory about that, but finish your thought.
I feel like either. So at first, when I was reading this, I found it interesting because I was like, when they were like, you would tear down the wards, I was thinking of Jack Barlow. And I was like, well, he didn't really do it for love. He did it more so for power, I thought. Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not a perspective of Jack Barlow. So I was like, okay, maybe she's right next to Xaden and they have this weird mind work they have going on. Maybe she's having dreams because like, or having dreams that represent him or like his dreams, or maybe this is like foreshadowing to what will happen to Xaden at the end of the book. Maybe this is the sage talking to Xaden and not Violet like she thinks. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking along the same lines that the dreams have to do with their mind-to-mind connection. Because you're right, they are different every time, or at least like they're more detailed the more she has them. And I was kind of wondering if she was like somehow seeing Xaden's dreams, or if they were like transferring to her. Like even when he was in Samara or whatever, and she was at Basgaeth, she wasn't having like super detailed dreams. And then when they're in Erasha and she's sleeping right next to him, I feel like the dreams get more detailed. So I'm wondering if it is a mind-to-mind connection and these are actually Xaden's dreams, which is why I think the Venin wants Xaden and she's just a tool to manipulate him. But I don't know. I keep getting conflicting information and I can't decide.
Yeah, I don't really know. Or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say.
I know we know for sure it's foreshadowing, but I don't know in whose perspective. So they do have this weird like mind tie. I feel like there's more to come with their mind connection too. I don't know. It's just I don't know. We find something new every time.
Unpack there. I feel like we just have to wait until Onyx Storm comes out, honestly.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out very, very soon.
All right. Let's talk about war. So at the end of this stretch of chapters, Melgan requested to meet with some of the leaders of the revolution, and in this meeting, he revealed that if Navarre doesn't make allies and quick, the Venin will attack one of their outposts, and Navarre will lose this war. So funny, so ironic how Navarre cut off all of their allies and helped them win the first rebellion, and then decided to just lock themselves inside of wards and think they're safe. And now they're the ones that are about to be killed. It's very ironic. I love it.
It is, yeah.
So the Venin are finally coming to take over the continent, and they're starting with Navarre. Well, they've already started, but they're coming for Navarre. And we also learned that the wards are failing, that Violet learned to raise. And the journal that she used to raise the wards, which was Warwick's journal, was a ploy to keep the truth hidden about the wards. And Lyra's I'm gonna say Lyra's journal holds the truth of the ward. So basically, we're back to square one, and yeah.
I did think it was hilarious when they were meeting with Melgran, and Xaden was like, "Why don't you just reach out to your allies?" Oh wait, you cut them all off.
Like, why would you do that?
Damn, that's.
It's the fact that they knew that Venin were out there, and they knew that this probably was going to come one day, and they cut everybody off because they thought that the wards were going to protect them.
Idiots. Anyways. All right. Next foreshadowing. Let's talk about that sassy teenager. We are getting major hints to Badass and Darna of the Seventh Den. So our girl's a chameleon. Quote, her black scales shine with a green hue this morning, reflecting the grass around her. It's interesting. We actually find out later she chose to be black because she looks up to Taryn, but she can basically change colors and is reflective, which is really, really cool. I love that. It's kind of almost like she's a mix of like all the breeds of dragons, and so she can reflect all kinds of colors. But I cannot wait to find out more about the seventh breed. Anyways, when Taryn sort of jokes he wishes he protested her right to bond, and Darna says, quote, "Good thing you're not the head of my den then, isn't it?" Taryn starts to say something about Coda, and then Violet interrupts him, but this is obviously a huge whoa moment on a reread, but definitely meant to throw us off as well because Taryn seems to be affirming that Andarna's a black dragon because Koda is the elder of that den, but we know that's not true now. And then later, when they're about to raise the wards, they need a representative of each den, which is another major clue. So Rebecca's getting our wheels turning, but she's also trying to confuse us.
Yeah.
Which seems to be her favorite style of writing.
This is like kind of foreshadowing as far as like maybe fighting styles and how they'll intermingle, but I want to briefly discuss the difference between the Flyers and the Riders. So in this stretch, the Flyers and the Riders have to band together to protect their people from the upcoming war, of course. And the more they work together, the more they see how different they were raised and like taught. So the Riders are taught how to fight and pretty much kill each other, while the Flyers are taught how to work together so they can be equally equipped. And this is really pretty much what saves them in the cave. And like, it's so funny how they'll figure out what customs each other have, and they're like, oh, that's weird. Like their initiation process, like them crossing the parapet versus them, and like multiple people dying versus the Flyers who just go cliff diving and nobody dies. It's like a little wholesome event, and they're like, people don't die in your conscription. So I think this is going to teach the writers more so of how to work together, and I feel like next book it'll be easier for them to actually fight alongside each other versus being each other's rivals. I don't know how this will play within the dragons, because the dragons are very arrogant and prideful, so like they still have their beef, but I think that this will help the Riders and Flyers become more equipped to win the war.
Yeah, I am curious to see, since they're back at Basgiath in the next book, how much Basgiath is gonna like bend and change to be less toxic, hopefully, because I don't think the Flyers are gonna put up with this shit. And it's not also just like, what's the point? Yeah, what's the point? Yeah. We need as many people as we can. We can't just afford for people to die every day.
They're gonna have to change. There's no choice.
By show.
They want to survive. They need some change.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the theories. I love the theories. Okay, we're going to talk about venin and runes and who is behind it. So after a hint from Mommy Sorengale, Mira and Vi hack up a wyvern corpse. Quote, after locating the pair of wyvern bodies, Mira draws back a polished chunk of what appears to be onyx marked with a complex rune I couldn't even begin to replicate. And the damn thing is humming. So apparently, we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Wyvern are created out of rocks marked with onyx runes. Interesting. After this revelation, Violet asks, quote, is this why Wyvern have suddenly reappeared? Did someone give the venin runes? Whoa, that's a big question. Well, this also explains how Violet was the only one who knew about Wyvern, but I'm assuming that the venin must have learned about runes somewhat recently. And I find that kind of interesting that they didn't know about runes before, but we'll go with it. I wonder if this means if there's a traitor in the rebellion, Brennan, or someone else on the council, or a marked one, or maybe even Kat, because she is very adept at runes. That's a little bit out there. I don't really think that would be the case. Or it could be someone we don't know from Basgiath that is tierish and is well versed in runes that turn venin. I think there's definitely going to be a ton of major revelations about turncoats and Onyx Storm, but I'm curious to see if we're going to learn just how the venin learned runes and from who. We already talked about Violet possibly being a truthsayer, but I'm going to talk about it again because I convinced myself that this could be her signet after saying all my eggs were not in that bucket. But after I read chapter 57, I was like, all right, I think there could be something here. So in the meeting with Melgren, my eyes were like bulging. So clue number 1, Xaden says to Melgren, quote, I personally try not to think about you. Xaden replies, outright lying. yes, it's obvious he's lying, but Violet pointing it out is kind of interesting. We already know, and she already knows at this point, that Zayden is a really good liar. So, like, why are you bringing it up again? Clue number 2, after Melgren reveals info about Samara, Violet says, quote, shit, he said exactly what he meant. Okay. This is making me think she is a truth sayer because she knows he isn't playing games without, you know, why does she trusting him? Because it's Melgren I'm talking about. She's like, okay, he's not playing games. I'm like, okay, how do you know that? And she also has a physical reaction to the truth here. Clue number 3, a couple paragraphs later, and Darna's bond is referenced. Quote, leaving space for Taryn and the opaque, glimmering bond I feel with Andarna even at this distance. So, truth sayer? Maybe? I just feel like this is pointing to her second signet right in front of her faces, like on the pages. I don't know. These things feel very specific. And then I also saw on Rebecca Yarros' Instagram, she got a Christmas gift or something that says Sorengale for truth. And I was like, okay, I'm paying attention. What does this mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm definitely more convinced it might be in my top 3 second signet theories now.
Yeah. So at first, I was like, not. I was. Everybody was like, "Truth sayer, truth sayer." I was like, "That's kind of lame." Like, I feel like she would get something better. It's like I'm not for this. I'm not for this at all. But like, the more I read, the more we get into this deep dive of Iron Flame, the more I think it is. The amount of times that like truth or lying or telling the truth comes up in this book, and how much she wants the truth, because we know that signets are like an extension of the writer. It's like what they need, right? So Violet always needs the truth. She hates being lied to. She wants to know the truth. This is what she's begging for Zayden for the past 2 books. So it's like, I feel like it's right there in our faces. It's like super obvious that maybe this is her signet. Like, I also do still think that her signet may be time slowing, because she still very much talks about time and heartbeats in this book as well. But I feel like the truth sayer is probably the number 1 right now, because it's very obvious right now. And it's like, I wouldn't have recognized it or like believed it if I didn't reread the book.
Yeah. Man. I had previously said I felt like it would be not like lame, but I don't think this would be the most useful signet for the upcoming war, especially since it's from Andarna and Andarna's so special. But I also think it could be interesting if it was a truth sayer, because it will help her for sure, because like you said, truth and lies is such a big part of this plot. But her not having a signet that's like technically battle useful, I would say, is just gonna make her even further have to like grow into her abilities as a lightning wielder. So I think that could be interesting if she was a truth sayer, because it does level the playing field with a Zayden's intrinsic signet. And I mean, her lightning power is so badass. Like, she can probably do so many things we haven't even thought of yet. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
I also think that, like you said, it complements like Zayden's intrinsic ability, and it could be a form of intrinsic abilities, because you are possibly, because it's not just about knowing like, oh, they're lying or they're telling the truth. It's about like reading body language and like just the smallest hints of like a tale that can help you. So it's almost like knowing people's intentions. It's almost the same thing if you think about it. So I mean, it could be a pretty hardcore signet if you think about it, but
very hardcore. Oh, really quickly, I had another theory, but I forgot to spend some time on it. In the throne room, when she is like in Zayden's head, like seeing through his mind or like hearing his thoughts, it kind of made me think, and I've seen this, that her signet is like almost like reflects other people's signets, or she's able to like borrow them or amplify them. I don't know. I think there could be something there, because that was also like on the pages, and Rebecca Yarros said that her second signet was on the pages.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have so many theories.
Right. Let's talk about our favorite moments. I have a few. This is a very beefy section.
It was.
My first favorite moment was like my favorite part of this stretch was Taryn and Zayden's beef. And I love how Zayden and Taryn have like this unseen tolerance for one another. Because of Violet. And I also love how much Taryn like really sticks up for Violet when it counts. And after Zayden shares when his many secrets, but I guess the one that counts the most being his intrinsic abilities. Taryn is very much salty with Xaden and his mate. And my favorite line was definitely, quote, "I could torture him if you like, but you do seem attached," end quote.
I like that one too.
I love that.
Love it.
And the next favorite part is, well, it's not really my favorite part, but it's just a part that was very notable in this stretch, and I just thought I should talk about it, which is Xaden's like, "Oh, if you ask, I'll tell you," whole persona. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, this whole like "ask and you shall receive" mantra from Xaden is just pure trash. And
Trash.
is Violet avoiding certain questions because she's avoiding certain truths? Yes. But he already knows, like, his abilities allow him to know what she wants to know already. Like, he already knew that she knew about his deal with her mother. And he was waiting for her to ask the question. But it's like, if you notice what she wants to know, why not just outright tell her? Why are you like playing these mind games with her and making her ask a question when you already know that that's what she wants to know? It's like every time they argue, and like of course we're in Violet's point of view, and she's like, "Oh, he just doesn't get it. Like, I just want him to tell me." And I'm like, men, literally.
Oh my god, Xaden. Sorry, finish, and then I'm gonna pop in.
One more thing. Yes, he is preparing her for some of the stuff in the midst of all this, even though he's keeping secrets. But it's like, is she really prepared for certain things if she doesn't know what she's preparing for?
No. Yeah. Dude, when he was trying to, like, when they were arguing, he was like, in a way, trying to justify, like, "This is why I want you to ask, and you're avoiding," and, and all I heard was, blah, 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 blah. Shut up and tell her the truth. Open communication. This is not healthy. I was so mad, but I really did appreciate Violet standing up for herself. Like, even I do feel like Xaden is a good communicator in the sense that he can be manipulative, and he's very good at, like, expressing words, and he's a smooth talker. But she didn't let him do that to her. She was like, "No, you need to tell me. I'm not gonna ask. This is bullshit." And I love seeing that from her, and it's also a great role model. But yeah, yes. Xaden pissed me off so much.
I do like the part when they're in his room arguing, and she's like, "Well, I can't help that all these battle axes are coming out the armoire." And he's like, "I don't think I understand."
Yeah, that was good. I was getting so frustrated with their argument.
My next favorite part, we talked about this earlier, is all the cat beef. I love all the little cat fights we get, all the like banter. So we finally get to the sparring scene. I just love how Violet basically hands Cat's tail to her. Like, also love that Violet still has the upper hand at the end of the day. Like, Cat's talking all this mess, and she's like playing with Violet's emotions, and Violet's like, "You know what? I'm sick of this. I'm gonna like dang near kill you," and she almost does. And it is very obvious that Cat is jealous, and I appreciate that she actually voices this in the cave scene. And I just love the scene where we find out who trained them both. I get chills every time I read that scene, and she's like, "This seems very oddly familiar," and then she's like, "Oh snap, Xaden trained both of us. We fight just alike."
I love how that turned into her being like, "Well, my bestie trained me too." Bam.
Yes. Okay, two more things. So my next favorite scene, or my next favorite part of the stretch, I love how Brennan just pops out. He's like, "I'm alive." Surprise. He did it to everybody. He did it to Violet, he did it to Mira, and then he did it to Mama Sorgo. And I just thought this was hilarious. How he just pops out, says some weird line, and they're like, "Wait, forget that, you're alive?" I feel like reading about Lilith's shock is like reading about Xaden losing his control. It was very nice. Very nice.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Very, very true. I know. And then Brennan was like, "Maybe you should self-reflect because all your children have chosen the I was like, damn.
Yeah. Burn. Last thing, this is a random thought because this is just something I thought about when I was writing something. I want to know, how does Taryn and Sigel be away from each other? So, like, when they were at Best Gaia, they had to fly every week to be with each other, and sometimes they wouldn't even get to see each other, and then like everybody was miserable. But like in this stretch, Xaden's flying away to defend the borders like a week at a time, and like there's no physical or like obvious struggle here. Like, she's not complaining about them being like them struggling about being apart. I found that really weird.
Was it?
I guess it just wasn't important.
He would go away for like a full week. I thought it was just like a couple or a few days at a time. I don't know. I wasn't keeping track of like how long he was gone, but that is interesting you mentioned that.
Well, in one of the chapters, she was like he had been gone for a week. She was really excited to see him. So maybe it just wasn't
Oh,
important in this stretch, and maybe he probably wasn't that far away like they were, because like they were a full almost a day's flight away. So maybe
yeah,
it wasn't as far. So maybe the bond didn't suffer as much. I don't know, but
yeah.
just that was just like a random thought.
Or maybe it was just a little oversight on Rebecca's part, but I
Yeah.
don't know. All right, my favorite parts. Oh my gosh, I want to talk about Sawyer and Justinia. They're so cute. And Sawyer better make it out of the series. We know Justinia does, but they are so cute. And I just really appreciated the little cute glimpses we get into their hopefully love story with all the action and the shit show of the relationship that's happening with Zayden and Violet. I'm like, oh, that's so pure. But I think it's adorable that Sawyer is determined to learn sign language because he is just smitten as a kitten. But, that should show all of us never settle ladies. Get you a Sawyer.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, my next favorite part was Dragon. I don't know why I said pot, like I'm British. Dragon Banta. I'm still doing it. Anyways, the Dragon banter was top tier. Top tier in the stretch of chapters, especially since Andarna is so present. And there's just so many quote-worthy moments, but I did choose a favorite, which is when Taryn and Violet wouldn't let Andarna come to the Melgren meeting. She, quote, cursed Taryn's entire family line, then blocked us both out and went to practice with the elders. I love this girl. That's just savage. She's like, I curse your whole family. Bye. But yeah, and then I love Taryn's response was basically, ugh, teenagers. But I love all of their interactions. So Violet's interactions with her dragons in this stretch, and Darna and then Violet's relationship problems really make Taryn's grumpy dad energy shine. But I will say he does give great fatherly advice most of the time.
Yeah.
I just love them even more after reading these chapters.
Bro, one scene that really shook me to my core was when Taryn was like, he found out that Sigil also lied about Zayden's second signet. And like, I didn't put it together the first time, like when she described it as Taryn turned towards Sigil versus him standing beside her.
Yeah.
And like as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, I forgot. Like she didn't tell him. It was like a small detail that was like, oh, he's mad. Like
it was so cool to get a glimpse into their relationship because we know Sigil is like the most craziest bitch alive, was so ruthless. Yeah. And she like bared her throat to Taryn. She was like,
yeah,
I fucked up. I was like, Sigil being submissive? What? But that part was definitely interesting.
All right, time to close out our But Brief section and move on to the book of Justinia, where we will dive into the mythology that inspired Iron Flame, as well as doing a breakdown on everything we know about Tirish runes. Feel free to skip ahead to the flight field if you feel like you're already an expert.
Yeah. For our mythology section, we are actually, well, before we learn all about Tirish runes in this world, we're going to take a moment to dive into the Norse mythology behind runes. Runes are woven into Norse religion and are closely associated with Norse magic and skaldic poetry. The old poem Havamal, I'm going to apologize for all my mispronunciations, explains that Odin himself discovered the runes when he hung himself from the world tree Yggdrasil in order to learn wisdom. He hung on the tree for 9 nights and days, and just before death, he found the runes, grabbed them, and earned his life. Super weird, but cool. The more practical explanation is the runes were developed in the 1st century AD, possibly inspired by the Latin alphabet, and they're used by all Germanic peoples, and most are discovered in Scandinavia. Runes are carved on weapons, tools, jewelry, amulets, bones, wood, stones, church walls, etc., etc., and they have such a form that they are easy to carve into hard materials.
In terms of reading runes, they constitute contemporary documentation, but it can be difficult to decipher the runes, and there's often several interpretations of an inscription. Sometimes the rune inscription is read from left to right, sometimes vice versa, from right to left. There are 2 main types of runic alphabets called the Elder Futhark and the younger Futhark after the sequence of the first 6 runic letters. Each runic character represents a letter so they can be set together to form a word. The runes are also magical symbols, and each character has its own name and symbolic meaning.
I found that so interesting. I think I'm just a nerd, but I was like, cool. I'm a slut for Norse mythology. I don't know why it's so incredibly interesting to me. But anyways.
Very nice, very nice.
All right, now let's talk about runes in the context of Tyrandor. So now that our characters are taking a masterclass in Tyrus runes, so are we. And it is also very highly extremely likely that runes will be a more prominent part of the magic system in Omnic Storm, which we mentioned earlier. Runes are a logosyllabic language unique to Tyrandor and Tyrus culture. I had to look up logosyllabic. I don't know about anyone else, but it means that they are partially phonetic and partially logographic, meaning the logograms can represent syllables phonetically or entire words. After the unification of Namar, runes were banned so that they would not fall into the wrong hands, and also because they are considered, quote, the great equalizer. So if you're well versed in runes, you can compete with a fair amount of signets. So if you're a flyer, I mean, you can learn runes well enough where you compete with dragon signets, which is cool.
I get so caught up in the myths and magics and the theories sometimes when you're talking about them, I forget that I have to talk to. I'm like, oh, this is very cool.
It is so interesting. I love it.
Runes are created by taking a strand of magic pulled from a wielder's power that is then woven in a geometric pattern for specific uses. Each geometric pattern has meaning. The points where power is tied change the meaning. So it's basically like combining shapes, and the combining of these shapes changes the meaning and thus changes the rune. The combinations of runes are essentially limitless. After creation, runes are tempered, meaning placed into an object for either immediate use or use at a later date. The rune will then activate to perform whatever action it is tempered for. Not as easy as it sounds, because magic is temperamental when pulled from the source, and wielder has to choose the object and amount of magic carefully, or results will be skewed. Limitations. Sorry. Skewed. Limitations on runes are how much power is imbued. So the length of time the rune is set to last and how many uses it has before depleting and needing to be imbued with power again. Which is why we saw Dane and Zayden imbuing the Wardstone.
Yeah.
With their little power.
With their little power. All right. We're going to talk about some of the runes that we know of so far. But yes, runes are essentially... they don't have a limit in terms of what you can create because it's all just geometric patterns. So if you combine different patterns and stuff, then you'll find different runes. So there's a lot of them, but we're going to talk about the ones that are mentioned thus far. Siphoning, so similar to the signet, this rune is woven to draw a specific power. Unlocking runes are designed to unlock doors and definitely saved Violet's ass once already. And these look like intricate swirls and ties. So some of the runes that we're going to mention have descriptions, but some of them don't. So that's why we're going to say descriptions if there is some. Masking is a rune that can hide something or somewhere from detection. A countering rune can counter or block a specific ability, and it looks like intertwined bees. So this is on one of Violet's daggers that helps her block out Cat's mind work. Protection rune can protect whoever carries the rune, and for example, like we talked about earlier, Colonel Myrie created runes to protect the children of rebellion leaders from dragonfire. And then ward-raising runes are carved into the ward stones, allowing them to be imbued and set ablaze to raid wards. Arisha's wardstone has a series of circles, at least 6 feet across, with each circle within the next, and boasting a rune carved in along its path. Vazgaya's wardstone is identical, but they are interrupted by a diamond pattern instead. And then ward extending runes, basically what they sound like. When imbued with alloy, these runes boost the power of a wardstone to extend the protected area.
Summoning acts as a beacon, but can be countered with an unlocking rune. Heating obviously creates heat, enough to melt ice in seconds or set wood aflame. Fire, obviously a rune that creates fire, often carried by flyers, is a way to light a torch if they are in a dark area. Suspension can suspend people or objects in midair. The rune is used on a chest to keep the venom from being able to channel. And hearing can boost the user's hearing ability. This is triangular with at least 4 shapes, and these runes need directional cues. Otherwise, the sound would be overwhelming. Wyvern creation. Venom uses this particular rune to turn a stone into wyvern. Tracking. A rune capable of tracking someone else's rune. explosion can be added and imbued into or onto arrowheads to explode on impact. Light can draw naturally occurring excess magic from humans and dragons to cause illumination. Example, mage lights.
Nice. So I
Ooh,
wonder
nice.
if the Venom are using runes to make Wyvern, can they not do the same?
Who?
Like our group? Like, can they make good Wyvern?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I
feel like
feel
they
like
could definitely make stuff, but I feel like runes are just not being introduced. I don't think they really know the extent of how much stuff they can do with these runes.
yeah. Well, I also feel like the dragons
Well,
would
at
be
least the
mad if they
writers.
made wyverns because that's
Yeah.
like an abomination of their kind. So probably not, but random thought.
This is why I think that runes are like we both think that runes are going to be a big part of Onyx Storm because this is probably what's going to save the
Yeah.
continent. Moving on, time to head to the flight field where every week Ken and I will do 2 mini series unique to our podcast. They won't be the same every week, so keep tuning in for all the fun. So today we're gonna discuss one of the Onyx Storm teasers, and we're gonna do Who Am I?
Yeah. So we're gonna read the teaser that Rebecca posted at the end of 2024. All right. So this is Jack speaking. You can fight it all you want, but that power streaming through her veins. Jack taunts, his words growing clear as I near the final few turns. There's a reason the higher ups want her. A little brotherly advice. Fall in line and find someone else to fuck. That infamous control of yours so much flickers in her direction. I would never, Zayden retorts, his voice lethally icy. My heart rate doubles and I halt just before the last curve in the stairwell, keeping out of sight. Jack's talking about me. Even you won't get a say in which parts of us are taken first, Ryerson, Jack laughs. But speaking from personal experience, control grows quickly. Just look at you, freshly fed from the source and already down here desperate for a cure. You will slip, and afterward, well, let's just say that silver hair that has you so besotted will be gray, just like the rest of her, and those weak-ass initiate rings in your eyes won't just last a few days. They'll be permanent. That was a devastating teaser to read.
I know.
It was
So
like
sad.
equally interesting and intriguing as it was horrifying to read. So, here's my thoughts. God, the more teasers I get, the more I'm expecting Onyx Storm to be, well, traumatic. And then also generally about Zayden pushing Violet away and trying to keep a grip on his control so he doesn't turn further venom. But from the way Jack is describing it, it kind of sounds impossible almost to retain his control and resist feeding from the source. I was holding out hope that it wouldn't be that bad, but it does sound like it's a really bad drug addiction. So this is really, really, really not good for their low-key toxic relationship already. But is this foreshadowing that Zayden will accidentally try or accidentally channel Violet or come close to killing her with his venom abilities? Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, back to more concrete things. Was this a confirmation that the Venom want Violet most? We were just talking about this and saying I have no idea which one it'll be, but I think this could possibly be a confirmation. I still think they obviously want Zayden for other reasons than turning Violet for love, but this does explain a lot and makes sense. Essentially, we can assume from this passage that the Venom higher ups want her because of the pure power surging through her veins. And I'm assuming they want her because they want to feed off this power, which begs the question why. It may seem obvious because they feed off of magic and power, but if they are supposedly so close to taking Navarre in the Veil, why did they want or need her so badly? Is she like extra tasty magic? I don't know. Is there also a way, like, is it possible for them to feed off her power without it killing them? Because we know that it does kill venom. So I don't know. This whole teaser just made me like really worried about Zayden and their relationship. And now I just have so many more questions. And I already had a lot. So now I just have like an exponential amount of questions.
So I have a random thought outside of my thoughts for this teaser that I just thought about while we were talking. So this kind of reminds me of Vampire Diaries. Because when they turn to a vampire, like it's very hard for them to control their thirst, and so they either like go rapid, like on a rapid killing spree, or they have to learn how to control it. And also, when the original vampires were introduced in Vampire Diaries, it was their original vampires. It was stated at first they couldn't be killed, and then the inner circle found a way that they could be killed. So the original vampires went out to destroy whatever that was that could kill them. Like the one weapon that could kill them, they destroyed it. Mm-hmm. So could this be similar? Like they want Violet because she's the one weapon that could kill them. So they want to make sure that either she turns venom or they want to capture her so she can't kill them. Since there are like that's the one thing that can really like, other than the daggers, like her power is the power that can finish them.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
man, I'm so lost in this Onyx Storm sauce.
I know. But my thoughts on the teaser are similar to yours. So this teaser makes me think that Violet will have to be on a really big time crunch to save Xaden. Like, as Jack mentioned, his control will eventually slip. And like Taryn and Sigel, like Xaden and Violet also can't stand to be away from each other. So I feel like this is going to drive them crazy to be away from each other and her having to be away from him to find out how to save him. And like you, Kana, I also think that Xaden will push Violet away. This is like obviously what he's great at, and she will be too busy trying to save the continent. And I also want to know why it seems so calm when the Var was just attacked by Venom and Wyvern, and why is Jack still here, and what's being done about this problem? What's being done about the Wyvern problem? And are they now aware of Venom and just steering clear? Like, I'm very confused. Also, why do these people want Violet so much? Like Kana asks. I know that she has raw power, but I thought, like we said earlier, we thought originally that they were after Xaden. And I wonder like if they took Xaden to lure Violet or vice versa. And I think I'm going to be totally and emotionally wrecked after this book. So
fuck. So my friend BB and I were hanging out talking about Onyx Storm, everything, and we were just sitting at dinner over a margarita talking shit about Xaden. And then we just looked at each other and we were like, I think we're talking about shit about Xaden so that we're not as emotionally damaged after Onyx Storm, but we both really love him and we're going to be crushed by whatever happens.
Yeah.
Which I think is true. I'm not ready to be this wrecked. But
yeah,
that is interesting. I'm guessing it's probably towards the beginning of Onyx Storm because I think they have Jack imprisoned in Basgiath. And I'm guessing it's pretty fresh from the end of Iron Flame Battle because Xaden's still an initiate. And so it's probably towards the beginning. And then we know in the Onyx Storm excerpt that the Venom come and try and break Jack out. So I'm guessing the excerpt happens after the teaser.
Yeah.
But I guess it could go either way. But I'm just going to guess it's towards the beginning. I'm guessing it's before Violet goes on her journey to find truth and allies. But
for sure.
Dude, I don't know. All right. We're going to do Who Am I? So we just pick a random line from the Search of Chapters and you guys and us will try and guess who said it. I go first. Are you scrolled up?
I am.
Word. Okay. The kneecaps are a much easier target. Who said it?
Taryn.
Yeah.
Because Andorra was like, go for the eyes.
Yeah, I almost
soft
did that
as tissue.
Andorra's a little savage, but yeah.
Okay. Mine is, I think you know this one because he brought this up. I wasn't expecting you to.
No, we didn't.
Quote, I personally try not to think about you. End quote.
Oh, Xaden talking to General Melgren?
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh, kitty.
Honey Badger. He's here.
Honey.
Okay. Are you telling scribe jokes?
Sloan?
Yeah. Wow. Crushing it. I didn't go hard enough.
Quote, then I'd be stuck cleaning little pieces of him off of our shared floor when Ryerson ripped him into pieces.
What? Hold on. Our
you want me to say it again?
Yeah.
You want me to say it again? Okay. Time. Then I'd be stuck cleaning little pieces of him off of our shared floor when Ryerson rips him into shreds, sorry.
Rhiannon?
Nah.
Fuck. Who is it?
It's Riddick.
Aw,
It's
man.
when Sawyer was asking her if she could teach him the sign. And Violet was like, "Oh, you made this like you were trying to ask me out or something." And Riddick was like, "Yeah." Then I'll be stuck cleaning him off the floor with Ryerson like rips him up into
Oh,
pieces.
yeah. I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right. Okay. Before we close out our episode today, it is time to spar. Each week, Mackenzie and I will give each other and our listeners 2 trivia questions. At the end of our Iron Flame coverage, we will tally who has the most points between hosts. Loser has to do something embarrassing or funny or crazy or nasty that the winner will decide, or you guys as fans can suggest. So we would love to hear your feedback, participation, ideas, and answers in this section. Let us know if you get the answers right. And we are currently tied. It's the score. We both have 4.5 points, so it's grind time.
Yes.
Your turn.
So this first question, I think this first question is, I don't know. I'm gonna ask it. Okay. Which kind of writers master the limitations of their signets?
The dead ones.
Yes.
I do remember reading that. Yes. Okay. But bam. All right. Here we go. Who is governing Erasha in Xaden's absence and after unification?
This is a trick question.
Is it?
Mm.
You want a hint?
No.
Oh, too good for a hint. Okay.
Is it the council?
No.
The committee?
No.
Brennan?
No.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
It's the House of Llewellyn, or however you say it.
Dude.
Do you remember that now?
I do. I knew that. I don't know why I didn't say that. I literally knew that because that was going to be one of my questions.
Oh, really?
Yes. Next.
Hold on.
The art of imbuing comes naturally to which signet?
Ward No, wait, siphoners.
Darn it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did get something wrong first, but then
It's okay. You got it right. It's all right. You got it right.
Good. Don't try to... Don't skip me. Don't give me a half point. I got it. Okay. How many wyvern come with how many venom come with the horde of wyvern to Erasha before the new wards stop them?
How many venom?
Yeah.
Shoot. Okay. Let me think. Let me go back through my memories. I know that there were like hundreds of wyvern, and it was she was counting, and she was like,
Honey, it looks adorable.
Is it like an exact number?
Yes.
24.
I'll give you one more guess. That's wrong. Too high.
12. What was it?
Third guess?
I don't know. What is it?
17.
17. I know she said something about a dozen. I don't remember if she said 2 dozen or was it she said over a dozen though. I know that was what it was.
Yeah, she says like 2 dozen or a dozen or something, and then Taryn is like 17. Because of course he knows the exact number.
Right.
Well,
I
have taken the lead, but you could still win. We do 3 questions in our episode 5, so you could make an epic comeback.
I'm upset with myself because I knew the House of Llewellyn because I literally put it as one of my questions before I chose the 2 that I wanted.
That is a wrap, folks. Just one more episode and 13 days until Onyx Storm is here. We cannot wait to talk about it with you guys for hours. But thank you for tuning in to this deep dive of Iron Flame.
Join us next Thursday as we finish Iron Flame, where we will be going over chapters 59 through 66, pages 552 through 623 for your reread or to refresh your memory.
Yeah. And it really does mean the world to both of us to hear feedback from you guys. So please take the time, leave us a review, even if it's a really short one. Check out our socials or reach out to us if you want to talk to us about Onyx Storm, books, anything. We love it. So reach out to us. And then make sure to subscribe on YouTube and all major podcast platforms for a freshly baked episode to be delivered to you directly next.
Bye, friends. See you next week.
Bye, friends. We'll see you next week. Oh.
Bye.